Hello, everyone. This is Jacob Pobia, the producer of The Apex, and this episode, Jan and RJ take the mobile podcast studio on the road to Carmel, Indiana, where they meet up with the host of WhysAdvice, Sergeant Michael Dagget. With over 3 million listeners, Sergeant Daggett is a huge advocate of living a healthy lifestyle after undergoing his own personal weight loss journey of 90-plus pounds. If you want to support the Apex podcast and become an Apex chaser, check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/the Apex podcast. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your Apex.
Welcome, Apex Chasers, to another episode of the Apex podcast. I'm your host, Jan Almasy, and as always, my partner in crime is seated across the table from me.
Farther across the table this
Mr.
time.
R.J. Holiday.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah,
I'm
going
going to get an air horn eventually.
So this is going to be, if we sound a little bit different, we're actually on the road.
On the road
for
again.
this podcast. We came out to Indianapolis, which actually technically we're in Carmel, Indiana currently. So we drove out here. There's a gentleman that we're going to be interviewing today that has been a huge help in getting the Apex podcast off the ground. Before the mics turned on, we were just talking about how we've pretty much been in contact for a year, and he was essentially the first person that told me how to start a podcast.
He started us off with some tips and tricks that
The tools of the trade.
that got the ball rolling a little faster than it would have organically.
Right. When I first reached out to this gentleman, I had 3 blog posts on Facebook. That was the extent of where I was, and I had one person say, "Hey, maybe you should do a podcast."
I wasn't even in the picture.
Nope, RJ didn't even know. RJ had
You weren't
no
even
idea
born
what
yet.
this
I
was.
wasn't even born yet.
So with that, I would like to introduce our guest for the day, Mr. Michael Dagget, a.k.a. FatDag.
Woo woo! Hey, welcome. Good. Hey, glad to have you guys in my home. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, this is
Into the recording studio, and like you said, it's been a cool journey of us from the very first conversation. And I think when you asked me to get some insight, I think I made some things up because I didn't know what I was doing yet.
Probably. Well, watching your
This
growth
sounds
over the
correct.
last year or two has been absolutely insane.
Oh, and I'll share that off the top. Is I think what happens is people who tune into our podcast, they tune in because they want to be a part of our lives and help us whatever journey we're on, and help themselves in their own journey. So it's all about audience engagement, which is why we're live on Facebook right now for my audience,
Right.
And we'll share it, of course, everywhere. But it really is just doing this because we like it, but understanding that people like it as well. So we kind of just keep that engagement going.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
perks of being a people person on my end, at least. Always like talking, but seeing how radio's kind of fallen off, because in high school I actually looked into going into like a specialized high school program where I would leave my high school and spend so many hours there to do radio. Cool. And I was like, I'd love to do it, but my parents were like, nobody listens to radio anymore, right?
What's a radio?
And I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do? And then
focus on the
podcast, and then
future.
he invited me. I was like, yes.
So
my
actually,
calling.
with that talking ability, we prepare for episodes totally differently. Okay, and by we prepare differently, I mean I prepare and he does not.
No.
So so
Prepare?
Yeah. What is
Why
that?
would you do that?
See,
He has this ability to actively listen to people. That I'm as a nurse, I'm good at doing that in the clinical setting, but for podcasts, my brain, especially with the way that we have our content structured. Like I said, I have to, listen to multiple episodes. I read stuff from our guests, and he just comes in and is like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, but you're also running the technical side
Yeah,
of it too.
that's true.
Like we talked about before we got all set up, is like if we could just show up, hit record, and get out,
Oh, it'd be way easier.
way easier. But during this, and right now I'm happy. I don't have to touch any dials.
Yeah.
This is weird for me. Usually I'm sitting there dialing the dials,
Yeah,
right.
And now you got the dials. I'm like, okay, so you do the technical stuff.
You
We'll
and
chat.
you and your 35 phones just
Yeah,
It's like you're playing Dance Revolution or that timing button.
I'm more or less a personality when it comes to it, but if I already know most of the stuff about a guest before I come in, then I'm more worried about the direction. I'll sit here in my own head and like, how do I lead this person in the next question instead of it just organically coming out? So I've told him, I was like, tell me the bare minimum of the person that we're going to meet with, so that when I'm there, I'm actually engaged in the conversation, and then my brain just starts pumping out questions left and right, and then it works a lot better that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if I was too prepared, I'd be like,
My next question is
I'm
this.
like, could you
Yeah, it
please
sounds
say
robotic.
this? Because I need us to. need us to go.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what all do you do? I mean, you do a lot, right?
I do
so
a lot.
What all do you do right now as far as, the WhysAdvice podcast, Operation FatDag? Who is Michael Dagget
Right.
as we're sitting here in your home?
So it's a crazy story. So I'm 27 years in the military. 20 of them are active. So I've been a military recruiter for 18 years, which is unbelievable.
Which is actually how we met in the first place.
Right.
Because one of your fraternity brothers
That's
is
right.
one of the head recruiters at my installation.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Small world.
So I started realizing when I was asking applicants what their birthday was, and the birthday was like, I've been recruiting longer than you've been alive.
Nice.
I'm old,
What a realization.
Not exactly it. So anyway, so active duty military, and but man, it all almost came crashing down, and I didn't realize it at the time. But those of us who serve in the military, we serve because our heart tells us we have to, and we just listen to our heart and we say, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and those of us, me in particular, I was doing whatever I could to make sure the mission was going well.
Gotcha.
I was, I putting people in left and right. I was doing whatever the Air Force asked me to do, I would do, except for the fitness side of it. I didn't have time for fitness because I was too busy
with everything else,
taking care of the mission. And so most of my career, I was overweight. Every year we do an annual fitness test, and I would struggle with it, but I would pass it enough to just get through the next one. It's once a year, so if you can get through it for suck it up, get through it for the month.
It's like in school, the midterm or the final. You're like, I'm just gonna cram, get this in there, and then once I do it, it can all fall out my other ear.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly, I would cram every year for this fitness test, and I would pass it enough to be able to continue my career, but the weight just kept creeping up between my age and my inactivity, and
harder and harder every year.
Harder and harder.
Yep.
So it finally got to the point where no joke, it was like, hey, it is time for you to separate. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The term I use is, I'm a good airman. If you look at my, not to brag, but if you look at my awards and decorations, I've done okay.
Yeah.
And so why would you want to get rid of me?
The paper resume looked good.
Paper resume
on paper,
yep. Right. And I was doing a good job in the things that I needed to do, but I wasn't taking care of me. And as we all know, if you take care of you first, it's so much easier to take care of everything else. So I finally got to the point where I was a little broken, and I realized that my career is going to come crashing down. And in my case, it meant no retirement. Yeah,
you're that far into your military career. There's a lot of other implications.
A lot riding on it.
Then
right. So my no retirement, no pension, no medical for life. All that stuff gone. Things that I'd planned on just being there.
Yeah.
After serving for 20 some years, and like, and all that's getting ready to go away. And it kind of hit me like, Mike, if you don't take care of your fitness, this is it. But I tell you, I didn't know how to take care of my fitness. I never ever cared about it. I would run if I needed to, but I never knew that it was part of the mission was to take care of me fitness wise. And I found a wingman, and I reached out to him. I said, man, I need some help. And so he walked with me for like 60 some days and said, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. And every morning he sent me an email, and he got my mind focused on just making sure I wake up every morning on fire to take care of me. And he did that, and I ended up saving my career, which was kind of nice. But then when he disappeared out of the picture, because we, yay, congratulations. Then all of a sudden I'm back to my own, and I go back to my old lifestyle.
It's hard. It's easy. I mean, it's
right.
hard to do and easy to slip right back into what you were, because that's what you're comfortable with.
Right.
That's
what
RJ talks about, self-accountability all the time.
Right.
And that's a really hard thing to come to grips with and then maximize once you realize that nobody's that integrity first. You know what I mean? I talk to my student fighters all the time. It's easy to do the right thing when everybody's watching.
Right.
But then
when you're left to your own, you got to figure it out. It's totally different. And I talk big about your habits, and the habits that you developed lead you somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I never changed my habits. So I would temporarily change my lifestyle, but my habits were still there, and so they led me right back. And so boom, I'm back into this mess where I've got to figure it all out. And I found a community and of folks, and I ended up joining Weight Watchers. For me, it was a game changer. And there's that stigma attached to it. But I was at the point where when you're broken, there's no stigma, there's no shame, there's no stereotype. When you're completely
you just want
broken,
results. You want to make a change.
You want to make a change. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I walked in and I found a supportive community of people who really understood the journey. And what it taught me more than anything was that what I was trying to do was possible. And I didn't believe that for a long time. I thought I was just destined to be overweight my entire life. I never ever thought that being fit was something that I was capable of doing. And so when I saw other people who had tremendous struggles in their life who are actually still making positive change.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute,
It's possible.
Yeah, not in a disrespectful way, but they're no better than me.
Yeah.
If they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Surely.
Gotcha.
And so that was the first step, is watching someone succeed who had a lot of other struggles going on and life challenges going on. It just taught me, like, okay, I can do this.
Right.
I don't know how. I don't know how yet, but
One way or another.
but I know it's possible, so I'm willing to give it the go and go after it. And so
Gotcha.
so I did. So I completely changed my life, got in the best shape of my life, and now I'm just I developed a podcast of people who said, I want to learn more. How did you do it? I'm like, I can't tell you how I did it. What I can do is tell you it's possible, and I can tell you why I did it. For me, you got to develop your own why. And so we picked up this following of a social media community. The WhysAdvice podcast does really well. And I just got back I was in Orlando, ran a 5K on Friday, and then I ran a 5K Saturday morning in Atlanta. And so people talk about, like, I ran 2 5Ks back to back. I think I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think
Right.
I've ever ran that much, period.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not yet.
if you see RJ running anywhere,
There's a problem.
you
I
need to
do.
follow.
I can see this.
You
I
need
can
to
see the
follow.
future, and RJ will be running.
Well, I hope one day. I hope my body stays intact enough from all the, misery I put it through now that I'll be able to, run well.
Yeah, so he's almost on the opposite side of the fitness spectrum, where he's been trying to put on weight for a very long time.
So I mean, if you go back and listen to the podcast that I was on originally as a guest, I wrestled my senior year at 142 pounds.
Nice.
And now I weigh like 265.
But you're
Yeah.
Solid.
So I went
It's
like
years
after
and
I
years of
graduated.
eating and lifting and like force feeding himself.
Oh yeah.
food.
The after I graduated and I wasn't in like wrestling actively anymore or anything like that, I kind of was like, I still want to be active. I want to do something, because I had always been, like, through my entire childhood, and but there was nowhere. I was like, I didn't get a scholarship to go anywhere. I wasn't playing baseball, wasn't playing football. It was either like, you go to college and then Olympics, and then even after college for wrestling, you're basically done,
Right.
unless you want to get punched in the face.
Oh,
Yeah. So I was kind of
That's what
like,
I
well,
like
what
to
am I going to do now? And then I realized, like, hey, I can put on weight pretty well. And then it escalated from
I'm good at
there.
that.
And then all of a sudden I'm cracking scales over here. I'm like, oh no. It's like, I'm twice as what I was in high school.
Yep.
So yeah, so you came down, I went up, and just meet somewhere in the middle.
But there, and that's one thing. It's really hard to quantify. But we have the only unit of measure we have that commonly for all of us is the number on the scale. But it doesn't mean everything.
No.
No,
And so
it does
many
not.
of us, we put so much stock in that number, and there's a validity to it. There certainly is. But to some extent, there is some. If you're, again, 2 5Ks on a weekend, and I feel like I don't care what the scale says.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah.
My clothes fit, all that. So we just go from there.
Yeah, the only time that I ever worry about what the scale says is if, I haven't stepped into a ring and fought in probably a year and a half, 2 years, right? I still train boxing and, I enjoy that. But the last time that I really cared about what the scale said 100% is when I had to cut down to 175 pounds to fight middleweight.
Right. Yeah.
That's the last time. I mean, if I'm not doing that, I'm like 218 pounds right now. Still run. I lift with RJ.
Solid.
I stay in functional fitness.
Yeah.
And I'm good. I don't need to be 175 pounds. I don't want to be 175 pounds
Correct.
all the time, because cutting down to that weight is very mentally taxing.
Yep.
You can't live like that 24/7, 365.
Right.
Yeah. And I agree with what you said about the scale too, because a lot of people that I train with or that I train and stuff like that, they always worry about the scale, because obviously doing bodybuilding or physique shows or anything like that, there's weight classes.
Right.
But many a times I've ran into people where I'm like, just don't worry about the scale. Go in looking the best. You may be 20 pounds heavier. You may be 20 pounds lighter than what you are right now. But the judges don't go up there and go, hey, you look good. What was the number on the scale the day before? And then they take off or add points depending on what the number was there. It's all about what you look like. I've seen people go to like a national qualifying show, like a state level show, be 15 to 20 pounds like above what they think they should be. Spend the next 6 months prepping for a national show at the end of the year come in 15, 20 pounds lighter or heavier than what they were before and look 1,000 times different.
Right.
And they've either moved up a whole weight class or down a whole weight class. And it's like, doesn't matter who you're competing with as long as you're looking the best that your body can.
Well, you're only really competing with yourself 24/7.
Right.
I mean, that's the person that, you're the one that has to wake up every morning and look yourself in the mirror. You're the one that has to, like you said, deal with your clothes.
Yeah.
You're the one that's dealing with all of those little, I call them the little demons that sit on your shoulder, right? And like your anxiety,
My
things that
little
kind of creep
demon
up.
is just Wendy from Wendy's. Just perpetually
And
sits
little-
on my
and little
shoulder.
Debbie- little Debbie, she's
yeah,
there too.
yeah. They're just over there like
They're just
4 for 4.
arguing back
4
and
for
forth.
4.
Yeah, and then every time
The
you see
Baconator,
you
the
see-
triple Baconator.
Yeah.
You need 3 pieces of meat, and 20 slabs of bacon.
3 Baconators.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But and then as long as you're satisfied with where you're heading, you're the only person. I talk about this in one of the blog posts on the Apex blog. I say you are the only person that can define happiness for you.
Correct.
That nobody else can define happiness for you.
And it doesn't matter what you weigh.
No, it does not.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter. what you
Now
weigh.
the scale it's a valid data point. There's
Yeah.
some there, but you got to use it as one data point in a sea of data points.
Yeah.
That
all feed into one another, and then you get, out the input that you want
Exactly.
from it.
So this massive weight loss journey, and you staying in the military and everything else, that's kind of like our defining moment for
Yep.
you, right? That's what led to
We
Wise
want to dig
Advice.
deeper.
That's
into
what led
that.
to everything else. So what we like to do here on the Apex podcast is, our tagline is ordinary people accomplishing extraordinary things and the human elements that got them there.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to backtrack. This is the section where we call it a rewind. So we're going to rewind back to the beginning and then figure out how we got to that defining moment in the first place. Okay. So why don't we start with, where did you grow up?
So my dad was active duty Navy. So I was born on a Navy base. Military's been in my blood for since day one. So grew up on the East Coast is what I claim.
Close enough.
Close enough. And I lived in born in South Carolina. Lived in New Jersey for a little bit, but predominantly lived in Maine most of my life. From about 7th grade on, lived in Maine. But if you get me down in the South, I'll pick up a Southern accent real quick because that's where I learned to speak.
Gotcha.
But I kind of got rid of that in Maine. So luckily, I don't have that Maine accent. Yes, I didn't pick that up.
That's funny.
But anyway, so lived in Maine for most of my life, most of my childhood and adult life, and went to high school in a really small school. I'm very proud of it. I graduated in the top 100 of my class. There was 91 people total, but I was in the top 100.
Yes.
So I'm
Score.
very proud of that accomplishment.
Yeah.
But really, what it was is I was a relatively smart kid in school. I did very well. I was an athlete. I played baseball. I played soccer.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask. You said recently you just got into the best shape of your life, but were you active in sports?
So
or
in high school, I was in good shape, but I was 140 pounds as an athlete. I had no muscle mass at all as an athlete.
Yeah.
So baseball, I was
So
the
you were
lead up.
RJ.
Yeah, you were me in high school.
Right.
I emaciated myself.
Yeah, as a baseball player, I was a leadoff batter. My job was to get on base. I wasn't the power hitter. I had no muscle. I couldn't swing a bat. It was all I could to swing that thing.
I'm bunting. I'm getting on first, and I'm scoring because that guy hit a home run.
Exactly. And as a soccer player, I just ran around the field. So I didn't have any muscle mass. So that's why I consider now to be the best shape of my life, is because now I feel like I've got some muscle mass. I've
combined it all.
I've combined it all. So athlete in high school, and then actually when I went to college, my plan was, I was like, well, I'm just going to go to college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My dad was military. I wanted to go in the military, and I actually back up a little bit. And so I actually went to go to the military initially, and I went down to see the recruiter. I said, hey, I'm here to join the military. He's like, okay, great. Sign here. Went down and took the military physical, and I failed it. And I have a high frequency hearing loss that I had no idea I had.
Oh,
Surprise.
Yeah,
Mets
surprise.
tends to bring that kind of stuff out.
They do. So they said, no, Mike, you can never, ever, I remember this, you could never, ever, ever join the military. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you have a high frequency hearing loss. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because I heard you tell me that.
Yeah. I hear fine. I heard
hear
that.
just fine. And then the doctor said, well, in a crowded room, do you have a hard time hearing? I'm like, yeah, well, doesn't everybody? He's like, well, no, just you. Type deal. I'm like,
really?
Okay. So he started explaining what the high frequency hearing loss was. And long story short, completely disqualified, can't join the military. So then it was, okay, well, I'll go to college. Because again, I did well in high school. I didn't apply myself as much as I wanted to, but SAT wise, I was fine. I graduated, all that good stuff. but I wasn't that go-getter. Like, I wasn't studying at 10 o'clock at night. You know, it was whatever. So I get to that point, I get to college, and I'm like, I'm going to continue my athletic career. And this is kind of one of those moments where I have no regrets in life. I get to school, University of Southern Maine, up in Maine, Gorham, Maine, and I walk on campus and I see a sign that says baseball tryouts. We have a couple slots for walk-ons if you'd like to give it a shot. And I'm like, you know what? I did okay at high school baseball in a school of 91 kids.
Yeah.
We took the whole school to get a field of 9.
Yeah.
So I was one that made the team.
Everybody available.
Attention, all people, report to the baseball field. We have a game today.
Yeah.
So I thought I did okay, and so I walk on this field. I remember this pretty vividly. I walk on this field, 140 pounds, 5'11", and I'm the shortest, skinniest person on the entire field. It was weird. Like, I'm on a field of men, and I'm just like,
who brought their boy?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I get up, and the coach looks at me, and he goes, why don't you just take a couple cracks at the plate? So I get up to the plate, and sure enough, first pitch comes in. I swing at it, hit it. Nice little line drive over the shortstop. Mm-hmm. That's all I had.
Yeah,
nice line drive over the shortstop. And I hit a bunch of little line drives. I did very well. And so I go, and then I go take the field, whatever. And the next guy gets up, crack over the fence, crack over the fence, crack over the fence.
Ah, crap.
And this guy's got arms as big as my legs, And then next guy, same thing. And that was the point I looked at. I'm like, I'm a skinny dude.
Yeah.
I'm not an athlete.
Back to the books.
Back to the book. So I walked up to the coach, and I'll never forget this. I walked up to the coach, and I said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take off. I appreciate you having me out. Thanks for letting. And I was expecting him to say, well, stick around. Or he goes, no, thanks for coming out. and he shook my hand, and off I went. So I knew immediately that, okay, professional athlete, not this
not
sport,
in the cards
not this
for
kid.
me.
Yeah. So here I was. So now I get can't join the military. I'm in college, can't be an athlete. That's all I've ever known.
You're like, books.
Oh man, yeah. I studied. So then, so I said, well, I'll start doing this study thing. It looks like it's kind of cool. And a lot of memories that I can't ever forget. I walked into class, and the professor goes, "This is not high school. If you don't show up, I don't care." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, cool, this is my kind of class.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize you still have to pass the class.
Yeah.
And so I struggled in college. I really did. And I found a fraternity, ended up drinking a lot of beer. And from that point on, it was kind of like
that
one of those.
That doesn't happen in college.
It does. It really does.
Not at all.
Weird.
So I found beer, and I found didn't have to go to class. And so a year and a half into college, the typical story, the dean calls me and says, "Congratulations, you made the dean's list." I'm like, "Wow, that's great." He goes, "Oh, not that one.
The bad dean's
you
list.
made the other dean's list. We appreciate your money. We appreciate you paying, but you're wasting a spot at the school for someone who wants to apply themselves. Why don't you go ahead and take off?" So academic suspension, academic probation. Mm-hmm. And at that exact same time, a guard recruiter found my paperwork and said, "Hey, we can do a waiver for this hearing thing if you want to join the military." And I'm like, I thought I could never join the military. Well, we can do a waiver. So sure enough, they processed the waiver, and I walk into the recruiting office again, and they said, "What kind of job do you want to do?" I said, "I don't care. I just want to serve this nation. Something. If you're willing to take me, I'll do whatever it takes."
Yeah, you're like, at this point, I'm on academic probation. I'm on academic suspension.
Please.
I'll go in services. I love my services troops. I'm not gonna diss on them. Just whatever I gotta do.
Anything.
Right. I'll do whatever. Yeah, just give me a JOB and I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I end up finally joining the Guard, and I go for a year and a half of active duty training.
So what was that? What was that initial AFSC? And for those of you that don't know what an AFSC is, that's essentially your job code for the military.
Yep. So I said, I'll do whatever it takes. And she's like, "Well, we have this job. It's called air traffic control radar maintenance." I'm like, that sounds kind of cool.
It's long. It's a bit long title. Sounds cool.
I said, "How long is the school?" She goes, "The school's a year long." I'm like, "Great, I'm out." So I take off for school for a year, and I'm working on radar systems. And
was that down at Keesler?
Down at Keesler, yeah. In Biloxi Air Force Base.
Nice. That's where I went to tech school.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was your AFC?
I was a Pop-Tart. I was
a
personnelist.
Yeah.
So.
Boom, in and out.
Yep.
Yeah.
6
I was there
weeks.
for a year. I saw like 18 trillion of you come through.
Yep. Yeah, you're the old guys walking around. I've been here way too long.
I've been here way too long. Yep.
I need to get back into the force. I've been in tech school for a year.
Yeah.
I'm an E2.5. Woo. Yep. So anyway, so that was my kind of like the gift back to me was, okay, you get to serve. So that was kind of like, I'm just so happy to be in the military that I'll work my tail off to do it right. Mm-hmm. And, I did very well as an air traffic control maintainer. At one point I was named the best maintainer in the entire nation. And so it came back from a deployment, put a package in. They said, hey, congratulations, you're the best maintainer in the nation. Pretty proud of that. And so that was my willingness to do the job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, complete the mission, like you said.
Right. Yeah. And so there was never an award for being the best fitness guy, so I didn't try and compete for that.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to be the best maintainer.
Yeah.
And years later, when I went into recruiting, I was the best recruiter in the nation. Same thing. I applied myself to the job 100%, but never applied it to taking care of me first. I wanted to take care of the mission first. So, so the reason we go all the way deep into that is that service to others and service to our nation has been something that's been with me from day one. You know, it's just the greatest part of being able to give back. And so now through this podcast and through hanging out with you guys, being able to continue to give back in a different way, just a completely different.
Yeah, it's just an innate part of your personality.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
there's an idea, you know, and we'll do this a couple of times because my brain tends to squirrel and I like to derail conversations. But there's a principle that I like in that mentality, you know, where you talked about I was focused on doing the job well, and my personal health took second place, or like what I did. Because when you were walking us through that story in the beginning, it was, you know, I was best. Okay, so you're best maintainer in the nation, best recruiter in the nation, and all that time, this weight, the personal health issues, you know, all this other stuff is kind of creeping up in the background. And I mean, we were just talking about this the other day, just with being podcast hosts and having the accountability to our listeners,
Right.
and putting out content and getting feedback and engagement and everything, and wanting to serve them.
And not just
And
come
not
and do
taking
the
the time.
podcast and then dip out.
Right.
Which
And
is
we
hard.
both have podcast studios in our homes, right? So I'm sitting in my living room trying to relax and watch a movie, and my podcast studio is down the hall going, you need to edit content.
Yeah.
I'm still here. And that's so, like, there's a principle that I love, that if you're not at your personal best, mentally, spiritually, physically, you know, whatever other quantifiers you want to use, your job is not going to be able to be at its best. Your job may be able to be at its best for a short period of time,
But
in the long haul, if you don't focus on personal well-being, that long haul is going to be a very tough road, full of a lot of potholes, a lot of abysses. And that's something that I had to learn. So, you know, kind of what my background is for, you know, both the live listeners and then for those that are going to be tuning into this episode. You know, when I was in high school, I was the opposite of you guys. I was the short, fat kid. Okay. So I was homeschooled up until 8th grade, came into high school a freshman, short, like 240 pounds, covered in acne, glasses, thought that it was cool to wear skinny jeans, that overweight, and like tight shirts. And like, I was the most socially awkward human being on the face of the planet. So when I got to high school, there was only like a small percentage of kids that were willing to like offer me protection, almost, because I was getting bullied a lot, right? And so I ended up attaching to groups of kids that had some, I guess, you know, sideways motives as far as what they were involved in, but they were my crew, you know. And so in order to be involved with that crew, I was like, oh, I've got to partake in these things in order to be cool and hang out with this group of people. So I was actually on track to where I almost went to juvie multiple times in high school. You know, at one point I remember being pulled over. There's a wake-up moment for me. I was on the side of the highway with like 10 people stacked into an F-150 crew cab.
Ooh.
And there's like a bunch of other things that I won't talk about.
Clown car.
Right, essentially. But I look back on that day because I should have either, you know, I was like 16 years old at the time, almost 17. So it's like kind of on that borderline where you're, you know, juvenile versus adult. So I could have either gone to juvie for a very long time,
Right.
or gone to jail.
Yeah.
But I didn't. You know, and I look back on that day all the time. I'm like, why did that not happen?
Right.
Because I wouldn't be in the military right now. Probably wouldn't have the career that I have right now.
Yep.
My life was on a path where it was going to be one or the other.
Yep.
So that defining moment for me is when I realized I had to focus on my personal well-being and push myself to be the best if I ever wanted to have the chance to even help somebody down the line.
Yep.
So 3 days after I turned 18, I joined the Air National Guard.
Beautiful.
You know, now I've been in blink 6 years.
Ding.
So I like moved from not being in the from being in the student flight program to running the student flight program. But the big thing that changed for me was finding a meeting point between helping other people in a way that allows me to boost my personal well-being.
Right.
And so for me, like I give, like currently I'm an RN, So I go back to my school and I tutor because that I give back, but then it keeps me on my toes because then I have to know all the clinical information that I use in the hospital.
Right.
So it benefits me. It's like killing two birds with one stone. So if you can find a place, and this goes out to all the guests that are listening, if you can find a place where your personal well-being meets your passions and it becomes this unified,
That's what the gym is
concept.
for me, essentially, too, because I'm able to, learn from other people that come into the gym at the same time, teaching them the stuff that I've picked up over the last 7 years of me training for shows and that kind of stuff. And then it's just a perpetual learning game for me.
It turns into therapy.
Yeah,
more than
exactly.
anything. And for recruiting in the military and everything else, if you're in better physical shape,
right,
almost always you're in better mental health.
Right.
Because you're increasing blood flow. There's a whole bunch of studies on, dopamine and serotonin and all this other stuff. Your gut's feeling better. You're eating better. Like your body, if you wake up and just bump out 10 push-ups, that blood flow that it causes.
Instantly.
I know some people that take cold showers every morning because it wakes them up and it gets them moving better than a cup of coffee. But it's those little things that that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
But there's like those little things that you do that okay, now your job is you're performing exponentially better at your job and you're not having to just gut through it.
Right.
To where like were there points when you were pursuing that, that maintainer of the year or that recruiter of the year where you felt like you got into work and you're just gutting your way through the day because you see the end goal, you see the mission, but it's like, okay, I'm passionate about this, but I feel like crap and I really have to push myself.
Yeah, I was really, looking back on it, and I have that defining moment, and I'll share that exact moment where my life completely changed. And but before that, I was just going through life with no purpose. I would wake up and whatever the calendar said I would do, and I had no real drive. I had no real vision. My job was my drive. I would show up and do the best I could at work, but I didn't have any long-term strategy with my life. And I'm trying to think, it was probably about 12 years ago. At some point I should look up the exact date, but I was selfish. I was going through life just kind of taking care of me, not health-wise, but just doing what I wanted to do. Whatever felt good, I would do it. And
that is a slippery slope.
It totally is. So I wake up, coming into December, and at the time I was flying a lot. I was visiting all the different Air National Guard bases across the country, and I remember looking at my frequent flyer balance, and I was 8 flights short of executive platinum on American Airlines. Now, back in the day, executive platinum meant every airline ticket I booked was instantly first class, no matter where I bought it from. So there's some perks, and before they cancel a flight, they call you and already have you rebooked. So if you travel a lot, it's a perk that is just hands down, absolutely valuable.
Yeah.
So as a frequent traveler, I'm like, man, I've got to get this flight. So I do some homework, and I booked a flight. I left San Antonio at 6:00 in the morning. I flew from San Antonio up to Dallas. I flew from Dallas to Oklahoma City over to Dallas up to Tulsa, Tulsa back to Dallas over to Austin back to Dallas back to San Antonio, and I landed at 9 p.m. Left at 6 a.m., landed home at 9 p.m. I did it for no other reason
than to get those 8 flights in.
Those 8 flights in.
Jeez,
so I got the 8 flights in, and so but in the middle of that, my life completely changed. And
was it mid-air or were you on the ground?
It was the flight from Tulsa to Dallas.
Huh.
So I'm in Dallas. I fly up to Tulsa. We land in Tulsa, and at this point I'm in the middle of the day. I've been flying all day, and I looked at the flight attendants. And I said, "You guys are going right back to Dallas, correct?" And she's like, "Yeah, we are." I said, "If it's okay, I'm just going to stay on the plane. I don't need to get off." And she's like, "Okay, that's fine." She goes, "Well, we actually have a seat on this particular flight in first class if you'd like to sit up there." And I told her what I was doing. I'm doing a mileage run, trying to get these 8 flights in. And she's like, "Yeah, why don't you come sit up front?" So I did. So I moved to the front of the plane. The cleaning crew comes in. They clean around me or whatever. And then one by one, people start boarding the plane. And as they start boarding the plane, a gentleman walks down the ramp, and he sits right next to me in first class. And I don't think anything of it. He's on his cell phone. He's talking, and he's going on about, I need to get a physical, and I got to fly this weekend, and if I can get my physical next weekend, that would be great. And I started picking up like, well, you're trying to get a physical on a weekend. Most doctors' offices aren't open on a weekend. So I'm like, oh, maybe you're in the military. You're a military pilot. He looked military type. So I'm like, oh, he's a military pilot trying to get a physical. And I bet he's probably in the Air National Guard. So I just kind of picked 2 and 2 together. So now I have this challenge of sitting next to this guy on the airplane who's talking on the phone, and I need to say, I heard everything you said.
I definitely wasn't eavesdropping.
I wasn't listening,
Yeah.
but I heard everything you said, and we have a lot in common. And so he hangs up the phone, and I did find a way to start the conversation
And angle it.
And sure enough, he is a Tulsa, Oklahoma guardsman at the time. He flies F-16s, and he tells me, he's well, what do you do in life? And I kind of told him I was in the military, whatnot. And we went back and forth. He goes, you got a second? I want to tell you what I'm doing with my life. Sure. So he goes on to tell me about the foundation that he was in the middle of starting, called the Folds of Honor Foundation, and he started telling me about it, and I instantly went, oh my God, that's an amazing calling, and that's why I started wondering, like, so here's a guy who's an F-16 pilot. Here's a guy he's actually a PGA professional, golf course owner operator.
Really?
So
Wow.
Why would you want to? Not in a disrespectful way, but why would you want to give back? Just enjoy your life.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a valid question.
Right. And
yeah.
so he's like, no, I enjoy giving back. And so he started the foundation, and he told me all about it, and I instantly was like, okay. So that exact moment changed my life, and I realized at that point, when you give back to help other people, you're the one that benefits. And I watched that through his eyes, and now here I am, almost 12 years later, continuing to serve in that capacity as a volunteer for that organization. And that kind of led me to this journey, because I never understood the value of taking care of other people as well as taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So I learned how to give back, but at the same point, I wasn't taking care of me.
Right.
Then I lost the weight, and I combined the two of like, okay, wait, I can stay healthy and help other people. Bingo.
All at the same time.
Bingo. And that's when life just went, okay, my life exploded after that.
The light bulb goes off.
Yeah.
I think that, because the Apex podcast started, right, obviously as JJD Thoughts was the initial idea. And so JJD is, Jan, Jacob, and Dominic. Those are the 3 guys that, I was cooking eggs in my kitchen. It was like, hey, we should post blogs.
Yeah.
Because there was a bunch of kids in our area. We had 6 high school age suicides in 6 months.
Terrible.
And I remember being at that place when I was like, you hear my story in high school, being in a place in an abyss where that made rational sense to me.
Right.
That, the world would be better if I would just remove myself from the picture.
Right.
Okay, so I remember being in that place and like looking back on it in 2020, every single reason why I wanted to remove myself from the picture was dumb.
Right.
But as a 14-year-old, it makes
perfect
sense.
Right.
Made perfect sense. And so all of that happened. We started posting these blogs, and I got to a point where it was my senior year of college, making it through the nursing program and all this other stuff. And there was this award at Walsh University called the Tower of Excellence. Okay. And so this is like the leadership equivalent of valedictorian. It's the longest standing award at the university, and it's given for leadership excellence in like showing the qualities of the university, essentially. I just realized how much I talk with my hands. And this is the first time that we're recording live. And it's like, But so this university, I'm not going to stop. It's going to happen. So the university, I got an email, and it was like, hey, you've been nominated by a professor to undergo this process. I thought it was spam at first. I was like, okay, like I'm just going to
this came to me.
I'm going to delete this email.
You had the wrong name on this.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm
Looking
thinking
for Jan, not Jan.
Yeah. And like, regardless of how successful I had been academically in college, I viewed myself as that high school kid.
Right.
That view never changed. So internally, I didn't have that self-love. I made it all the way through school having this external pride, but not being proud of myself. And there's that difference between, being outwardly boastful to try to hide something versus being internally proud of your accomplishments. And so I made it to that senior year. And so the process for that Tower Award is like, you get nominated by a professor. That pool gets narrowed down to 30. Those 30 turn in a packet. Those people that are accepted with the packets get narrowed down to 5. Those 5 people go through an hour-long interview with a board of 6 people from the university level, and then 1 person is selected out of those 5, and they end up giving the commencement address at graduation. So for whatever reason, God, green earth, they decided that they were going to let me speak at graduation, right? I ended up winning that award. But I remember I'm Catholic, so our Divine Mercy Sunday is a big thing for Catholics. So I remember sitting in the chapel and I was praying the night of the banquet where they were going to announce, these top 5 finalists. And I was already ecstatic that I had even made it into the top 5.
Right.
You know, I was exponentially thankful. And I sat in that chapel and I was like, okay. I was like, if this is supposed to be a defining moment for me, that my wake-up call, right? This is like my light bulb going off that if I give back, then this is good. You know, because I had been kind of focusing on me trying to get through nursing school. Inevitably, as a nursing major, we're hermits because it's a difficult it's a difficult major between clinicals and everything else. I'm just, you know, going to the hospital, then going back to my apartment, sleeping, eating, then back to the hospital. But sitting there in that chapel, I was like, okay, if this is supposed to be a sign to me that I need to reach out more,
right,
then I was like, let it be a sign. It's like, if this is what you want me to do, tell me this is what you want me to do. But I don't ask for very blatant signs very often, but I need a slap in the
something.
face. Yeah. Yep. I was like, something.
Proof.
Hit me.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I
Hit me with the proof.
got in there and he hit me with his best shot. You
Yeah.
know, I ended up standing on that stage crying, like accepting this award. And my dad told me after I won the award, he was like, I'm proud of you, but remember, this is a fancy piece of wood with your name on it.
Right.
He's like, what you do with this moving forward is what really is going to matter.
That's a great point.
And so I took that and I ended up giving the speech at graduation called "The Apex of My Life is My Death." And so that statement is, you know, everybody has these peaks and valleys in their life.
Right.
And the apex, by definition, that word means the highest point of any path or object.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once you reach the apex of something, there is no up. It's the highest point that you're ever going to reach. The only direction you have to go is down.
Or straight across.
Or straight, or you plateau,
Yeah.
right? So why would you want to reach your apex at any point in your life other than when you leave the planet?
Right.
You know, there's different phases. You know, I'm at an apex of my life right now, just graduated school and everything else. You know, there's going to be another apex 5 years from now.
Right. That's when you reevaluate what the goal is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5
right.
years again. You reevaluate those goals, and I hate it when people put timelines on goals, and I know you do too.
Yep.
Because I've listened to that show, and it's like you put that timeline on a goal, or make the goal too specific. Once you reach it, you're like, yes. Now what? The day that I made staff sergeant, I was like, I've been looking forward to this for 5 years.
Yep.
I was super excited for 24 hours, and then I was like, crap.
What do I do now?
Now what do I do?
Now what?
It's all got to be retailored at some point too, because where you are now won't be where you
Exactly.
will be in 5 years, and it wasn't where you were 10 years ago.
Yeah, so you have to
Yeah.
reevaluate your apex.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are you headed now that's going to elevate, you know,
Above what you were previously at.
exactly. You're just the only person you're competing with is who you were yesterday,
Yeah.
who I was 5 seconds ago, who I was at the beginning of this show. Because I'm learning things, you know, as we're sitting here talking right now, I'm thinking about ways that I can change things just by the way that he's describing stuff.
And I think, you know, I mean, you want to reach your apex. You want to be the best in the moment that you're in. But I guess the difference there is what do you do when you get there? And so for a lot of us, you know, we get there and we go, yay, and then the only direction is down.
Right.
But if you get to that top and you go, yay, okay, next goal.
Yeah.
Next goal's up there, you know,
Stacking.
and I'm going to climb again, and I'm going to climb again. And that's where when you have these life-defining moments, or you have things that when God truly taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, this is it, go
Right.
do it. You know, and I thought for a long time that, you know, when I told you when my life completely changed on the airplane, I thought for a long time my calling in life was to give back to military families in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we provide scholarships to military families who've lost someone on the battlefield. This year alone, we pushed out $20 million in scholarships. Very proud of that, you know, but there's so much more to be done.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking for this longest time that this is why I was put on this earth. This is why I'm here. And then as I'm doing that, I'm going to lose my military career.
Yeah.
And I'm
all at
like,
the same
I'm like,
time.
wait a minute.
Yeah, that can't be right.
If this is why I'm here, then why isn't my military career being protected?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you know, by you know, because I wasn't protecting it. Why wasn't someone else helping me protect it? And then as I figured out that okay, I need to stay serving in order to continue to serve, and I end up getting healthy, and that's when I saw this whole new opportunity of the number one retention issue in the military is for people who are overweight. We lose more people to obesity than we do on the battlefield. Yet very few of us are able to understand it or tackle it. The military does a decent job of helping those out. But generally speaking, in very broad terms, and not trying to be disrespectful, but in very broad terms, the folks who are running the fitness facilities are people who've never struggled with a weight issue.
Right.
You know, so they're these gym heads, people who love going to the gym. That's why they work at the gym.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and for those of us who don't like going to the gym, we get intimidated by seeing people in the gym who live in the gym.
That's
So-
like somebody that's a lean gainer trying to so for a lean gainer is somebody that is naturally has a high metabolism.
Yep.
So they have to eat a lot of food in order to gain weight, and then they constantly look ripped because they have a low body fat content naturally because of their metabolism. That would be like somebody that's a lean gainer trying to tell me who's a easy gainer. I can sniff a donut and gain 2 pounds.
Dude, right.
Yeah.
I struggle with people who train individuals who are there for quality of life purposes, but then the person training them has only ever done shows.
Right.
And you go back and you look me like, well, in high school, you were lean and fit. In college, you were lean and fit. And now you're lean and fit. I go, what personal insight do you have this with someone
With
other
that
than what
struggle.
you, other
Yeah,
than
that
what you,
weight
I'm
loss
not saying
journey.
that everybody's terrible at
Right.
training, because like if you go and you look at some people who dedicate, like they're in it, but they want to personally work with, quality of life people and don't want to be within the, training and competing market of clientele, then a lot of those people like know what they're talking about. But there's some people who all they do is they train people to get ready for shows and whatnot. Right. And then they'll sprinkle in a couple of quality life people. And I watched them putting those people through the same workouts. I was like, they're not getting ready for a show. I go, they don't need to be doing miserable workouts like that if all they're trying to do is, lose 10 pounds in the next month or two.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think what
that.
he's trying to hit is that there's something to be said about what if somebody can empathize with the journey of another person, which is really what I think wise advice is.
Yep. So it's twofold. It's I can see the journey. I know where you're at. I know where you're headed, and I know what you're trying to do is possible.
Yeah.
And now I want to convey that knowledge back to you that hey, I've been there. And so when I say, it's kind of like when someone says, hey, the other day we went out to eat and I didn't order French fries. To me that's a big deal. I get what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to other people they're like, okay, so you didn't order fries, big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's a huge deal for some people.
Yeah.
So, but the guy at the gym would be like, well, yeah, I never eat French fries. Like, well, I get that. That's
You're
why
used to that.
Yeah,
That is your life.
right,
at
we're
that
trying to
point.
get there, maybe.
One day.
Right.
But
I can't even do that.
I know, right? And you know what? And nor do I want to. I don't want to be. And so I'm at that point now where I want to have this happy balance of I'm enjoying my life. I'm healthy and I'm happy and I'm fit. But if I'm at the point where I'm no longer enjoying life because food is controlling me,
Yeah.
then that's a different direction that I want to go.
And
So
a lot of people think that they have to diet that way. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to lose the weight,
all or nothing.
miserable, lose weight, they're basically on the same level. And like, because my girlfriend doesn't strictly understand like how do you still go and we get nice desserts and get ice cream and that kind of stuff. I was like, because I figured out a balance between like, I don't want to go on vacation and
Not have
like
a
I went to
margarita and
Disney
some
one time,
tacos.
like right at the beginning of one of my preps for a show. And I did the math, like the simple math in my head, like I can get away with this as long as, I'm not strolling through the parks, like,
Right. Right.
just, sucking down every treat that I possibly can. But
Right.
like I know this one restaurant, there is a dessert that, I'm only getting here in Disney.
Yep.
So I'll eat well, throughout the day and get the things that I want. And then I feel bad for people who like look at me or look at other people and like think they have to just, suck every happiness out of food and, fun out of it for the sake of dieting to lose the weight. I go, yeah, it might be a little bit slower, but what are you racing against?
Right. You have your whole life.
Yeah.
Right.
So do it slowly, still enjoy the time you have with, loved ones and your family to be able to enjoy those experiences because me personally, food brings a tremendous amount of happiness to me and basically everybody that I'm close to.
Right.
So the last thing I'd want to do is, go on a nice vacation, do all this sightseeing and then be like, I'll have a salad.
Right.
Yeah. So why
Is
don't
there a Subway in Paris?
Yeah.
I don't mean Subway. I mean I need a sandwich.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
So with that idea in mind, why don't you talk to us about what you mean when you talk to your audience about the difference between a diet and a lifestyle?
Yeah, totally. And so I agree with you completely, RJ, that food is meant to be enjoyed. Now, for a lot of us, we don't understand what that means.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, then I should enjoy it every day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know? Well, and that was me. And so I didn't understand that, yeah, food's meant to be enjoyed, but there's a balance.
Yeah.
You know?
Moderation.
Moderation. And so that's certainly the difference between a diet and a lifestyle is that you have habits. Every one of us, there are things that we do and we don't even know we do them until we're done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you kind of think of like when you drive to and from work, you know, if I ask you to name every exit between here and then, you probably wouldn't be able to do it, you know, because you're like, well, I just know I just get off at where the tree bends or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you have these things that you do and you kind of put your life on autopilot. Those autopilot habits are what led you to exactly where you're at today. And so the diet mentality, whereas we say, okay, let me take my habits, let me put them on pause, and then let me go do this other thing for a little bit.
That is completely out of the norm and uncomfortable.
Yep, it's uncomfortable, it's not normal, it doesn't feel right, but I can do it.
Yeah.
You can do anything for 30, 60, 90 days to an extent, right? If you're truly focused on doing that. So you're
laser focused.
So you put your habits on hold and you do this diet thing, and then you get the results or not. You know, you say, hey, I got the results, and you're like, okay, now I'm going back to my habits.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your habits led you to here, so your habits will lead you back to here.
Yeah, it's like,
if
every 6 months, do you want to have to diet for 90 days?
Yeah.
So the difference between the lifestyle is we say, okay, now let me look at my habits, and the habits that I currently have led me to this location. What habits can I change? What habits can I modify? What can I do slightly differently that will lead me to a new place? And that's where the lifestyle comes in. And so you don't have to give up anything. You don't have to say, okay, I can no longer have pizza. I can no longer have carbs. I can no longer have meat. You know, if you want those things, you know, it's up to you. You can work them in, but it may be the difference of, I kind of make the equation of like going to a football game, you know, here in Indianapolis, you know, the Colts game. Well, if I go to one Colts game a year, there's very little at that stadium that's going to ruin my diet, right, or my lifestyle. But if I work there, different strategy.
You
know,
like if I worked at Chipotle, oh boy, it would be, especially when they first opened up, they're like, you eat free while you're working. I'd be like, ha,
score
every 20 minutes.
So you'd
end up getting fired.
Yeah,
you would.
eat more than you've sold today. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
We're out of burritos again.
I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to look at your habits, and I want people to what I consider set attendance goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so the analogy is, and you kind of hit on it. We go to the gym and we find this trainer. The trainer's been fit his entire life. The trainer's never been overweight a day in his life, in a lot of cases. And the trainer goes, okay, we're going to do this Navy SEAL cardio kickboxing workout. You know,
it doesn't work right off the bat.
And you go and you kill it for 30 minutes to an hour, and you leave there and you're like,
feel miserable,
and you can't
You're
move.
Squirting shampoo on the wall of the shower, trying to wash my shoulders don't work.
Right. So you can't move for a month. And so what happens is, so you go do this workout. If you can make it back, maybe you do, but very rarely do you continue doing that for a life.
Yeah.
And you stop. So what I tell people is fine, go to the gym, do as little as possible so that you can do the exact same thing tomorrow.
Again, yeah.
And then do the exact same thing the next day. Now you've gone to the gym 7 days. Now you've gone to the gym 14 days. Now, you may not have felt a thing, but mentally, everything now has changed.
You're in that routine.
Your habit is on the way home from work, you stop at the gym. I told a gal once, and I meant this, and she was talking about, how do I develop a habit to go to the gym? And I said, well, I want you to, here's my training plan. If I'm going to make a training plan for you, here's what it's going to be. Week 1, you go to the gym. On your way home from work, stop at the gym. Listen to me very carefully. Stop in the parking lot, sit for 3 seconds, drive home. Don't get out of your car. And she's like, huh? Like, that's week 1. Week 2, we're going to walk in. So pull in the parking lot, walk in, say hi to the receptionist, walk out. Week 3, walk past the receptionist.
Conditional training.
You know? And so now, at the end of the month...
The inner psych major in me is coming out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So now, at the end of the month, you've been to the gym for every day this month.
You're in this place.
You're in this place, you know?
May never have touched a weight, but you're in there.
But you're in there. So there will be a time, month 2, where you'll start driving home from work and you'll be tired. And next thing you know, you'll be in the parking lot and you'll be like, how did I get here?
Because you've been doing it.
Because my habits are leading me to a new location. So you got to set an attendance goal, meaning every day do as little as possible in the right direction so that you can repeat it and build that consistency in that habit. Let that new habit take you to a whole new location.
For someone who's not used to training or adding that, element to their daily routine and whatnot, like for me, I was always at some type of practice. So after graduating high school and getting in college and whatnot, it wasn't far of a stretch for me to be like, okay, Well, instead of, being on a sweaty wrestling mat for an hour and a half, I'll be in the gym.
Yep.
Because I that hour and a half, 2 hours was already, been solidified in my schedule since I started playing sports in grade school.
Right.
And the idea of just, opening that up every day is absolutely genius. Because, he's asked me before, I know my family's asked me before, like, how do you, push yourself to go in? Because I'm at the point where I beat the ever-living crap out of myself almost every single day at the gym.
Yep.
And I still go back, and they're like, how, do you just perpetually work out sore? I'm like, if I don't go to the gym, if I'm not sore, something feels wrong.
Right.
Like something internally in me is just like something. No, that you feel good. You must be sick,
He
or you would be in
slowly
the.
has turned himself into a masochist. Is what's
Yeah,
happened.
well, but basically, yeah, I'm at the point where if I don't go Monday through Friday, I internally scream to the point where I'm like, I need to go. I need to do at least something
Because that's your lifestyle.
yeah, for the last
Yep.
6 years. Like I think on the drive here, I literally was just thinking to myself, like, I know these people, like I've come and gone, I've lived in different areas, but I've always went to the same like gym. And I was like, I started there when I was 19. I've seen so many people pass. And I think the reason I thought about it is because we're renovating part of the gym, so it's going to look a little different than from when I started there. And I'm like, how many consecutive days have I been there where it's just like, walk in and walk out, and I've seen the same people for years and years and years, and it just blew my mind. Like I've been there like 7 years, like coming up on 7 years.
You've probably done workouts and been on days where you don't remember them.
No,
You just show
Yeah.
up.
it's all just
No,
bled.
I have
yeah,
felt that. I
Yep,
have
lifting
felt
weights.
that
Lift,
100%.
yep.
it's all just bled into one another.
Yeah.
And that's something that, working 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts as a nurse, I did a routine with him to actually prep for a episode that we were going to do with, there's a gentleman named Ryan Koblenz that we interview on here, and he found his why to do a bodybuilding show after, like, his best friend died in a hit and run. His father was diagnosed with cancer multiple times.
Another close person in his family
Another
actually
close
passed
person in
away
his
from
friend
cancer.
passed
so
away.
everything was, when it rains, it pours. So
Yeah, everything was hitting him at once. And so he said that he found his why to prep for this bodybuilding show. And in preparation of interviewing that gentleman on the show, I had RJ put me through a 12-week regiment. I was like, so what would it feel like to go through a bodybuilding prep? And he was like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. And it got to the point where I'm doing an hour and a half of cardio a day. I just had to split it up into 2 sessions. But I was working 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. And sometimes it would be 3 p.m. to 7 a.m., depending if I had to stay over. And I got to the point where, like you said, I was so in rhythm about week 6 that I would get off of work at 3 a.m., dead tired I'm an intensive care nurse, so I'm running around trying to keep people alive essentially for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I would open my eyes and I'm staring at the powerhouse sign. I'm like, okay, time to go do cardio.
And you think just the opposite, there were days where I would come home from work and I would walk in and kick up my feet, grab the remote and start flipping on the TV. And that's just, the TV would come on instantly.
as soon as you
Yep.
broke the
Not
seal
because I
out,
was not because I was hoping something would be on, and I would go channel up, channel up, channel up.
you're not even
channel up,
paying attention.
channel up, channel up. And so next you know, that hour's gone by, you haven't watched a single thing. That's a habit, you
Yeah.
know. And so when you recognize that, okay, that habit, I ask people, like, set a goal, define your goal, and then ask, do the actions I'm doing right now, do they push me towards that goal, or they push me away from that goal? They're going to do one or the other. And am I okay with that in the moment? Because there may be a time where what I'm doing right now doesn't exactly align with my goal,
Right.
because I have a different goal that maybe it's satisfying. So a good example is if you're on a healthy weight loss plan and you want to eat better and you want to go to the gym and you want to get better, that's your goal. You may also have a goal of being a good family person, being a good dad, being a good husband. Well, this weekend, maybe being a good husband is going to a football game, or maybe not, but maybe to a craft show, being stereotypical.
Cleaning up the house.
Cleaning up the house. But that may not align with, I want to go for a run as well. So today, my goal is if I do this, it checks this box in this goal. So you got to figure out what your goals are. Ask yourself, the actions I'm doing right now, do they align with my goal? Do they push me towards that goal, or do they move me further away? If the answer is move you further away and you're not happy with it, then go do something different.
Yeah,
And say, hey, I need to make a change. So for me, coming home every day, sitting on the couch, turning on the TV, aligns with none of my goals.
Right.
None. There isn't a single goal I have that aligns with, turning on the TV and just so
Mindlessly flipping through channels.
So 8 years ago, I cut cable and I had I don't watch TV. I haven't watched TV other than an occasional football game or an occasional sports show in close to 7 years. That time is used way differently now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that mindless time can be very like useful once you realize that it's mindless time that you're wasting. So with that, with the goals and the habits and stuff like that, earlier on in like the Apex podcast episodes, we have an episode where I talk about, these minute daily decisions that lead you, and I compare it to the president of the United States and then a homeless person addicted to drugs. Okay. So that's very, two totally different sides of the spectrum. Okay. And I say that nobody ends up, very rarely, I'll make that disclaimer, very rarely does somebody end up the president of the United States without very deliberate decisions over a long period of time, day in and day out, to get to the point where they're recognizable enough to run. And then once they're recognizable enough to run, day in and day out, deliberate decisions to get to that other point. Also, very rarely does somebody end up, either in and out of prison or
being homeless
on the streets or a drug addict or anything without daily deliberate decisions that led them in a different direction. And there's those exceptions where there's, one person has a depressive break and they decide to use, or something happens. I worked in drug addiction counseling for 2 years, and there's these, I learned more from 14-year-old meth addicts about what it means to be a human being than I ever did from any psychology classes, because it's, what drove you to do that at 14. Hearing some of their stories is absolutely mind-boggling, and I have a huge passion for that population, but it's those daily deliberate decisions. And so what I tell people is that if you're making those decisions, whether you know it or not, like you said, that subconscious is just absolutely insane how much it controls our lives, And so our subconscious is like a wall, right? And if you stand with your nose directly against that wall,
not going to see much.
All you can see are those the decisions, right? So you're sitting mindlessly flipping through channels on the couch, okay? The door to success, 2 feet to your left, it is right there. Your nose is touching the wall. You can't see anything but this box, okay? So what I tell people is periodically what you need to do is detach.
Right.
And I talk to myself, this is weird, but I talk to myself in the third person. Okay, Jan, what are you going to do today? And I'm picture myself I don't know if some of the demographic will get this, but The Sims, that was a game. My younger people that listen to this may not know what Sims is, because that's, a little bit farther back. But it's a third person game, right? You're controlling a character. And I was you need to detach as if you're playing The Sims and look at yourself and say, hey, my character is literally standing directly up against the wall. Let's take 4 steps back. Yep. Oh, look, the door.
Yeah.
And then you can walk over, open it, and now you're in the outside.
Yep. And you hit on it. You have to make deliberate actions. And if you don't take deliberate actions, then you're left with whatever society is going to hand you. And society will gladly hand you the wrong stuff. It is available. So you have to figure out
your tendency is to take the path of least resistance.
Of course, yeah.
Change society. So whatever society hands you, if that's the path of least resistance, and you're mindlessly following it, your body's just going to go.
So you can either have the leftovers of life, or you can go take the main course. And so you've got to get to the point where you're
steal that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
It's true, right? I mean, it's you have to wake up and go, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And and so if I wake up and say, I want to run a 20-minute 5K. Well, then I can't go sit on the couch and watch running shows, or maybe, but not really. At some point, you've got to wake up, get up, and say, okay, that's going to require me to get up, lace up, and go get it done.
Do it,
go move. Now, will you ever get there? Yeah, I don't know, but if you take deliberate steps in that direction, then the likelihood of getting there is different. You may get halfway down that path and go, okay, actually, I don't actually want that goal now that I see what it really means.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, a lot of times when we set goals, we don't know what we're asking for
or what it takes to be there.
Especially when you start in a weight loss goal. When I was 91 pounds overweight, I had no concept of what my ideal weight should be.
Mm-hmm.
So I make this arbitrary number. Oh, that'll work. Come on. I just pick the number out of the sky. And so you don't know what that means. So along the way, you may get there and go, actually, I didn't realize that what I really wanted was this, and this, in addition to being fit and healthy. I'm content here. And so you get to make those adjustments, but, go set a goal and go after it. And if you get in the middle and you realize that it's okay to change your goal, as long as you're completely, you've given it your all and you understand now, okay, I'm now 4 months closer to the goal. I understand what the actual goal is now because I can see it now. Before I couldn't even see it. So modifying your goal to keep yourself happy, I mean, I think that's where the point where you wake up every single day going, I feel good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, because you realize that like we said with the apexes, that the apexes are movable. Your goals are movable.
Yep.
Like you can adjust them. I mean, it's this. I don't know why it's such a hard. I mean, it was a hard concept for me to grasp for a long time.
Right.
You know, if I would have my original goal for this thing that we're doing right here, right, was like, I'm just going to write a couple of blogs on Facebook.
Now look at it.
That's as far as I was going to take it. Okay, if I would have never adjusted my vision, stepped away from the wall, you know, listened to the tap on the shoulder from the big man upstairs, or, you know, all of these other things, that never would have happened. If I wouldn't have had the nuts to hand out, like, that first blog post that I wrote called Be a Swiss Army Knife, which we just recorded a podcast on. It'll be the one right before this one. And I gave that to Sergeant Schaefer. And I was like, can you read this? Would this be something that you would like to read if I were to put this out on a blog? And he was like, I really liked it, but I think I know somebody else that would really like it too.
Yeah.
He's like, you should hit up my fraternity brother.
Pass it down.
And I was like, fraternity brother? I was like,
brother.
did you guys drink any beer together?
That's what led to this whole thing.
Yeah.
And we've come full circle.
Here we are.
Yeah.
You know, back to the beginning
Yep,
of the show.
exactly.
So, I mean, this is, you know, really eye-opening for me as far as just the applying a lot of the same principles that I use, you know, on the Apex podcast to tell people about, you know, career choices, leadership, because I'm only 23 years old, right? I'm going to be 24 here in August of this year. And so people look at me and they're like, who are you to be giving leadership advice, right? And I was like, well, you know, experientially, I've been through enough to where that dichotomy in my life where I was like, I consciously made the decision to go this way.
Right.
So this is where I kind of have a little bit of leeway to do this. And I tell people I have the ability to relate to both sides of the spectrum. I was like, I've got degrees. So I'm going to say old people, no offense. Old people will listen to me.
I got to take a nap.
It's nap time.
Is it 8 p.m.? No, I'm just kidding. So like the, you know, 30, 40, 50 plus will listen to me because I have professional certifications, you know, 6 years of military experience, all that other stuff. They'll listen to me. And then I'm also young enough that a 16-year-old isn't going to look at me and be like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Who is this guy?
Yeah. Or you're so far in age that it doesn't matter anyway.
Right. So I can kind of bridge the gap to where my 17-year-old brother is kind of like, oh, okay. Like, you sound like you kind of know what you're talking about, even though I'm saying the exact same thing that my dad says.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just coming from me,
Right.
not my dad.
Sometimes that's true, though. Sometimes it's just the source that makes a difference.
Exactly. Right. And so hearing it, the same principles
From an old guy.
that we use that we use to apply to, you know, how to chase your dreams, how to chase your apex, being the exact same principles that is, okay, here's how you're going to reach your weight loss goal. You know, here's the WhysAdvice template. It's you chasing an apex.
Right.
You know, it's the exact same thing. And I tell people all the time that you can apply the same principles. And that's what we try to prove through all of our different interviews and everything else like that, is like, we always pull it back to, you know, if you're pursuing your personal definition of happiness, you align your goals to meet other goals, you know, and set that priority. You know, today I need to be a dad. Today I'm going to focus on fitness. Today I'm going to focus on being a nurse. Right. You know, there's days that I don't go to the gym because I get off a 16-hour shift and I'm like, holy crap.
Right.
I need a stack of pancakes and I'm going to go home and take
But
a
you
nap.
never lose sight of that gym goal.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's okay to take a day off.
Right.
The next day I go back in. And it's like,
There's a reason your company doesn't work you 7 days a week. And same thing with anything else. It's okay to take a break just for the sake of, you know, your mind, your body, your spirit with it. Because, I mean, every once in a while, like when I get done with the show, I won't go to a gym for 2 weeks.
Right.
I'll just be like, I've been in there
multiple times a
yeah,
day.
multiple times. Waking up in the morning, getting my cardio done on an empty stomach, going back to do my lift. If I have more cardio or I need to lose a little bit more weight, I go and do another set of cardio right after my workout or come in later. After a show, I'm like, I want snack food and I want to lay on the couch and I don't want to have to worry about going in and busting my chops, you know, for 6 hours a day.
I equate that exactly to an Olympic athlete, right? The Olympic athlete at the peak of their life, when they're competing at the Olympics, that's the best, you know? The week or like months before or months after, they may not be able to break that record.
Mhm.
You know, because now they have other goals that are kind of taking a little bit of a higher priority than setting a world record. You know,
Yeah.
maybe a year later, it's like, okay, but doesn't mean that they're not still swimming. Doesn't mean they're not still running.
Yeah.
It just means that in a competitive mindset, they have other competitive goals that are
Right.
well rounding their entire life.
Yeah.
So it's okay to take a break if you understand all of your goals and you have some sort of mechanism to remind you what your goals are,
And it's not
so that you don't
hindering
lose it.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a difference between taking a break and quitting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so-
Yeah. Big time.
You know, and so, but what happens is a lot of times we take a break and we forget that we actually had that goal.
And the break rolls into
And
quitting.
the break rolls into quitting because you just forget. So if you're going to set goals, you know, I don't have my planner right in front of me, but it's over there. If I open my planner, I have 5 or 6 goals written out. And one of the things I do every morning is I open it and I read them just to remind myself that at some point, Mike, you set this as a goal.
Yep.
May not be today that you're working on it, but it's still in there. So I read it often enough where I go, okay, I'm going to come back to that because it's that important. But a lot of times we set these goals and then we forget about them until all of a sudden we get, especially in the weight loss world, we set a goal of, I want to lose weight. And then the only thing that reminds us is either Monday or January 1st. Those are the only 2 reminders in the weight loss world.
New Year's.
New Year, Happy New Year. Oh, that's right, I wanted to lose weight. Or, okay, it's Monday. That's right, I'll start over on Monday. But if you could find a way to remind yourself on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday.
Oh, my mom does that all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a rough week. I want ice cream. I'll start Monday.
Right.
And that Monday turns into Tuesday, and that Tuesday turns into
And the
5
following
Mondays from
Monday.
now. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
I'll start that next Monday.
So you got to find a way to remind yourself, set a goal, set multiple goals, find yourself a way to remind yourself that these are the goals I have, and then prioritize it. Wake up every single morning and go, today I'm working on this one. Can I work on 2 at the same time? Depends on what they are.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. You know, if you have
Yeah.
a sleep goal and a running goal, you can't do them both at the same time.
Mm.
Right.
You know, but you can certainly work on them different periods of time and get it all done. So
So there,
And with that too, like you said, just having, like, I've never thought of this, but I'm gonna, for clientele and people that I help personally when it comes to training or for show purposes or quality of life, the idea of just getting them into that routine, even if they're not doing anything, just to kind of trick their brain, I'm gonna steal that for sure.
But it's dangerous though, because if you get a client that, you know, you say, hey, how much would you help me? Yeah, I'm going to charge you, you know, $10,000 a month. Okay, week 1, pull in the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. Obviously,
Like,
I wouldn't pull that, but just, I mean, and that can be tweaked into other aspects too. Like when I first started bodybuilding, I obviously knew I needed to put on a massive amount of weight for how tall I was.
Yep.
I would bring my meals, and I eat between like 6 and 8 times a day, and not terribly. I'll throw maybe Wendy's in there every once in a while, but mostly it's turkey, beans, and rice.
Yep.
Chicken, beans, and potatoes. Fish, broccoli, brown rice. It's nothing.
it's a lot of
it's-
meat, beans, and some type
yeah,
of
it's
carb.
nothing
Yeah.
glorious, but I would bring them with me. I'd have them all packed out for the day. Sometimes I get to meal 3 or 4 and I get like 2 bites. And I'm like, well, I did better than the 1 bite I did the day before.
Yep.
And then eventually it was just like 6 meals. I'm like, I'm still hungry.
Right.
So
Right.
as long as it can lead, you can take those breaks and it leads to the end goal and builds upon what I always tell people, it's okay if you take a break as long as it doesn't regress you back past where you started.
Right. Right.
So let's say you chug it out for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years or whatever, but then you're like, hey, I need a month off. I go, okay, well, if you want to take that break,
Here's the benchmark.
I want you to come back where you were. I don't want you to come back where we were 2 months ago.
Yep.
Because then not only are you wasting your own time, but you're wasting my time on top of that. And I don't want to see that. I mean,
For either of us.
yeah, I want them to stay where they're at and then come back refreshed and not have to repeat what they just did for the last 2 months, but then take that, breath of fresh air into even like propelling them faster forward from where they stopped at.
Yep.
So
and I think it works. You just get, I think you just start off with, we haven't really dug deep into it, but you have to understand. You start with the why.
Mhm.
Why am I doing this? So when you have someone say, hey, the first couple of weeks, you may feel like you're not doing anything. I'm not working on your physique. I'm not working on your cardio.
Mhm.
I'm working on your mind.
Yeah.
And because as we know, the gym, most people believe that the gym is where the weight loss happens. And
Right.
Nope.
and the reason they gets that credit is because people who like going to the gym have mentally figured out that the gym changes the brain in such a way where they start eating and doing things that align with their goals.
Mhm.
It's not the cardio that loses the weight. It's the mindset that goes, oh, I'm taking care of my body. So therefore, the next meal, I'm willing to take care of my body differently.
Right.
That's what really solves it. So if you start going into why am I doing this, and how do I stay tuned to that why, and you let people know that ahead of time, people will always be willing to do it if they know why they're doing it. Hey, go do this. Why? Because I said so.
That was me as a child.
Yeah. Not
Mom,
enough.
go clean your room. For what?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a good reason.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's one of Simon Sinek's biggest platforms.
Totally.
Start with why.
Yep.
The Leaders Eat Last, all of those types of books. I think the active recovery, like we've said, as long as your recovery is pertinent to your goal. Like if I take a recovery day, I'm super. I love poetry. Okay, I love writing. I love the words of the English language. Right.
He goes to
Dead Poet Society is one of my
slam
favorite
poetry
movies.
sessions.
But so I'll sit in my apartment, right, and I don't have a hearth, so there's a fireplace channel on Netflix. So I put on the little fireplace channel, and I have my little glass of a double shot of Elijah Craig single barrel bourbon, and I sit there and I read R.M. Drake, or I'll read Hemingway, or I'll read Emily Dickinson, and then I will use that to kind of relax. But it gets my mind into a place where I'm able to let go of a lot of the stress that I've been.
And that's what running does to me. It's funny when I first started running, and this is where for me when I realized another defining moment when I realized that I actually enjoy running is when I first started taking off running. The first purchase after the running shoes was the iPod and the headphones. Right, and it's like I need the best headphones. And I would go running and I gotta have a playlist. Now I can't run with music because there's too much going on in my head. So when I go for a run now, like I don't need any music. I just want to go clear my head.
You
and
sound like a crazy person to me.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Because I can't work out without music. I'm like, everybody can hear me grunting.
But I don't need that distraction anymore, because now I'm actually enjoying what I'm
doing. You're doing, yeah.
And I'm taking it all in. Whereas before the music was the distraction. Like, okay, if I can just get through these next 4 songs, and, I'm at the finish line, yay,
Yeah.
And
No,
now
that
it's just
makes
the
sense.
opposite. So now I don't need a single tune when I run. And I joke, I was like, 'cause there's so much going on already.
Yeah.
I talk to myself enough on a run.
right.
But it's like to me, it's like meditation.
Yeah.
A run and meditating. I don't meditate, but I make the analogy that to me that's my meditation.
Right.
Because I'm not
The
distracted.
gym is the same thing for me. If I'm having a bad day or something like that, there's nothing better than going in there and just putting yourself to the metal and kind of pushing yourself through it.
Yeah,
And just like
for me,
sitting
it's
here
writing.
thinking too, like you guys said, as long as the goals it doesn't hinder when you take breaks or anything like that. And, basically restructuring your brain to help you keep yourself on that right track. Like if you can get yourself to the point where when you take breaks, it's not because of something, but so that you can do something. Off or do like slack.
Okay, continue. Sorry, it paused for a second.
Whoa.
I
trying to cut me off?
No, I really need to get.
didn't like what I
need
was
to get a better
saying?
laptop because the disk space on this bad boy is
Time to
slow.
upgrade.
Time to upgrade.
But yeah, basically, I've gotten to the point where anytime I make a conscious decision to take a break or take a day off, it's so that, like, hey, I'm a little sore today, and I'm going to go in and have a terrible leg day or a lackluster one. So I'm going to take the day off so I can actually go in tomorrow and have the most productive leg day that I possibly can, and it not just compounds into, 2 crappy workouts back to back.
Because you're just
Right.
keeping your goals in mind. You're
Yeah.
keeping the big picture at the top of the list.
Yeah, so if I
Exactly.
want to reach that, I'd rather, go 2 days and have great workouts than 4 days and have all those ones be, half-assed.
Lackluster. So we're pretty much at time. So I have 2 quotes in mind that I'm going to use to wrap this up, and then generally at the end of every show we give the guest the floor.
Yeah, you
can Right.
say whatever
Anything that you want to promote,
slander
anything
us,
that
but
you want.
whatever
This
you
was
wanna
the
do.
worst episode ever.
Yeah, this was such a horrible experience.
Do
this
not
was a
ever
lot of
come
fun.
back.
It's cool to get out of our own setting.
Yeah.
And it's also like I've tweeted out and I've sent out on Snapchat and stuff. It's cool to see someone else's setup because it opens up your head to what possibly could be, what we should invest in,
Right.
what people like to see,
Mic stands.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. So
Because we're gonna do this going on the road a lot more now. You know,
Yeah.
we're gonna.
We're not trying to
podcaster
go
out in
around
Pittsburgh.
and ruin everybody's oak
Beautiful wooden
tables
tables.
because our clamps are
Right.
screwed in. They're like, oh, sorry about that.
Do you have a drill?
Yeah. We can't set this up.
Yeah. So these quotes that I want to end on is, you know, one is a quote that my grandfather told me, and I think it gives credence to the Monday and the first of the year that you said. That everybody wants to start then. He told me when I was a kid, you know, getting to the point where I wanted to join the military. I was like 16 years old, and he ended up passing before I was able to join and graduate, boot, and everything. But he told me, why wait to become the man that you want to be in the future when you can become that person today?
Yep.
You know, and so that I kept that in mind as soon as, you know, when he passed, that was the big eye opener for me. That was like, okay, I need to do this for him, for me, for the United States. Exponential reasons. I need to start being who I say that I'm going to be in the future today. Why do I have to wait?
Right.
You know, that's the whole mentality with the Apex and being only 23. Why do I have to wait to be, you know, exponentially down the line to start giving advice to other people and reaching out and being a helping hand? You know? And then the other one is, if you are able to define your personal happiness, you know, there's the quote, there's a poem called the Desiderata, and I read it every morning. And one of the pieces in that poem says, if you can walk with kings, or sorry, this is the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. I get those two. They're both on my wall. Okay. So this quote is, if you can walk with kings and maintain the common touch. And I think that sometimes we get so caught up in being proud of our achievements and proud of what we're doing, and we're moving forward, and there's a whole bunch of momentum, but you need to keep yourself in mind where, you know, they say that the hungriest wolf is the one climbing the mountain, not the one at the top. If you can continue to tell yourself, I'm another person struggling in this world,
Right.
trying to help other people and trying to be the best that I can be, you have permanent motivation.
Yep.
If you never actually reach that peak, that apex, that
And
goal.
Jan started this company with the idea of, you know, helping as many people regardless of age. And I've hopped on because I've always wanted a way to, you know, give back and help people with, you know, either my voice or the others, like, you know, working out or, you know, whatever they want to do. But up until, you know, I was part of the podcast, I really didn't know what way to go about it. I tried going through school, and that just never seemed to work out. You know, can only help so much people. Like, I'm still competing myself, so it's hard to help other people reach their goals when you're still in the thick of it yourself.
Right.
Because then I feel bad not giving 100% to somebody because, you know, I'm giving 110% to try to get myself there first. Like my dad at one point was kind of like, you know, why don't you just start training now? And I'm like, because if I train people now, then I'll probably quit because I'll be so invested in them. And like, you know, like what he just said, you know, that common touch, like I enjoy doing this so much because I'm able to reach so many people on a, you know, a wide scale faster than I would be able to do on my own. And this is, I mean, I think I found a pretty good calling here with my
we're
abilities.
just three normal dudes that happen to buy mics.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yep.
That's what it is. That's what
exactly
it boils down to.
I equated, and your quote was perfect. As I say, fame doesn't exist. You know, a lot of people, you know, they believe when you start this, like, I need to get concerned with how many downloads, and there's some measure to success to that, but I need to have so many followers. But the reality is there are people all over Twitter, all over Facebook with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers that you and I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
they could have millions of
and
followers,
they also don't do anything for anybody.
and we don't know who they are.
And they may be unhappy behind the screen.
Yeah.
So if you go out and you find real people and you share what we're sharing and you share in a giving, loving lover's heart, and you always like, I'm doing this because I want to help you find the success that I found, then and you treat them with the same respect that you wanted to be treated when you were looking for it, that's when everything starts building. You
Wow.
move forward in that way.
So why don't you take us out?
Yeah,
Like,
floor is yours.
What are your parting words? If you had to offer anything to the Apex listeners, like as a tidbit from the WhysAdvice house, what would you tell our listeners?
The number one thing I always make sure I want everyone to understand is that I believe in you. If you have a goal and you understand that that is something you want to accomplish, and you have found that that goal is actually possible, I believe in you. I believe you have the ability to do whatever it is you want to do, and there's a roadmap to getting there. You can't wake up. It's not going to happen accidentally, you know, but I believe you have every bit of drive, determination, fire needed to accomplish whatever goal you want to set up. And so that's the one thing I leave everybody with. And I go through on my podcast, I get to the point where I want people to understand why you're setting these goals. Why did you set it? So you can set a goal, that's great, but why did you set it? Mm-hmm. And it goes, like you said, goes back to Simon Sinek. Start with why. And I've given my listeners about 5 different questions that helps them develop their why. And I'll give you a tidbit one, and then I'll force you to go listen to the rest on the podcast.
Perfect.
But what I want you to do is understand it. If you know why you're doing it, you'll be more apt to stay with it. You'll be more apt to continue doing it. And so a lot of people they say, Mike, and how do I develop my why? And so I walk them through the 5 questions. But the most important one that I believe is I ask them, I said, think of the things that you've done in your life that are challenging. Think of the most challenging thing you've ever done. Think of the worst day of your life. And I want you to write about that. I want you to grab a pen. I want you to grab a piece of paper. And I want you to just completely by yourself, let that pen flow. And I want you to type it into your phone. I want you to physically write it down. And as you're writing the worst day of your life, I want you to give me the details. I want you to tell me, what happened the morning before, the morning after. And you go through this entire day of just pure hell. And then I want you to stop for a minute. And as you're writing it, it probably will bring tears. It should. And you get done writing it, and then I want you to say, okay, now wait a minute. You made it past that. So you have some internal strength that you didn't know about. And you survived that. So now, would you rather relive that experience or write down Snickers bar? A lot easier to write down Snickers bar than to relive that. So that's my most powerful question is think of the hardest thing you've ever done and write it down. And then what I want you to do is then every single morning wake up and read that. And then you start your morning with, okay, I know why I had these goals set, and I know why it's important to look at all the actions that I have and make sure that they align with the principles of the goals that I've set. And so you can certainly find it on the WhysAdvice podcast, and it's a play on words. It's WHYS, so WhysAdvice.com, FatDag.com. And the last piece we didn't really hit on, but hopefully people are still listening at this point. My passion now is other military members who are exactly where I was. And so I started an actual nonprofit organization where I want to provide the tools, resources, and education to military members who are on the verge of getting kicked out of the military, not on their terms. And I want to say, I want to help you. I want to help you maintain your career. I want to preserve your career through what we call operationfatdag.org. So there's 3 different websites. Apologize for giving you 3 of them, but
you're fine.
No, we can add them all into the show notes.
Yeah, so fatdag.com, WhysAdvice.com, and then of course operationfatdag.org are the 3. But that is where we leave you with. I leave you with. I believe in you. I totally, with every single ounce of energy I have, I believe you can do this. And so that's what my listeners know. And I always let me just pack up. The reason I believe in them is because they believed in me and taught me that it was possible. Yep. And so now we just continue that full circle giving back. So, guys, I can't thank you enough for having you here.
That's
this
amazing.
has been the coolest day ever.
Thanks for coming on our show. It's been a blessing. I've learned a lot. I mean, just sitting here, I would love to talk to you again. Like, just pick your brain because, we've gotten a lot of people write into us and ask us questions on how we run this whole operation.
Yep.
And
you're like, I don't know.
We got some stuff in the works for, the podcast. Personally, I have some stuff, in the works for that I want to, kind of open up myself on Twitch here in the next couple months. And then you have the whole, 17 phones going to every form of social media all running at the same time. Jan knows podcasts in that market really well. And so do you. We've never even dabbled in any of the, the live streaming and stuff like that. And then, I'm deeply know Twitch and Discord and that kind of stuff. And I think it'd be awesome just to sit there and kind of just all 3 of us go at each other with, these different mediums that we're all kind of backing at this point.
Right. So, okay, with that, this has been another episode of the Apex Podcast. Again, our guest today was Mr. Michael Dagget, Senior Master Sergeant Michael Dagget, for another 100 and something days.
Yeah,
122 days, I think.
As always, Mr. RJ Holiday has been seated across the table.
Hey, hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. I know I sure did. It was a fun trip coming down here, and an even better talk to top it all off. It was a pleasure.
Amazing. So for all of the Apex Podcast listeners, as you know, you follow us on @JJD Thoughts on Instagram. We are at JJD Thoughts on Twitter. We are at theapexpodcast.com, where you can see the Apex blog. You can also see all the episodes of the Apex Podcast, which is also available on Apple iTunes. It is available on Spotify. pretty much anywhere podcasts are available, you can find us. If you would like to join what we call the Apex Chasers, you go to www.patreon.com/the Apex Podcast, and you are able to become a donor. There's going to be a lot of content rolling out through Patreon here in the next couple of months. We're working on developing a Discord community and a bunch of other things that RJ is personally going to head up. You'll be able to directly interact with him.
It's going to be my
and
domain.
Boom, boom. The lowest amount is $1. That is all it is.
Any
$1
little
a
bit
month
helps.
to donate to become an Apex Chaser and have access to that content. All of that continues to allow us to travel like we did today to come interview people like Senior Master Sergeant Michael Dagget and continue to produce the highest quality content that we can to make sure that we continue helping you chase your Apex. So with that, continue chasing.